This week, we're going to talk about light. And just like sound, you probably already know a lot about light. You probably use a light every single day. We turn lights on and off in our homes. Cars have headlights to help them see and be seen at night. And we all use the light of the sun to play outside. But what is light? You can see it, and sometimes you can feel the heat on your skin, but you can't hold it or catch it in a box. If you turn off your light, it disappears instantly and doesn't hang around in the room with you. So what exactly is light?
Oh, I know, pick me!
Oh, hey, Quill. You want a boost? There you go. So, Quill, you know about light?
Yes, well, no. But I have a book that could help us learn about it.
That sounds like a great idea. Would you read it to us?
Sure, but could you do some examples? Light can be a little complicated, and I know you've worked with it a lot.
That's true. I work in theater and film, where we use light to help our audience see what's going on, and we use it to create the world of our stories.
Perfect. I'll head back to the nest now and get ready.
Sounds good. While you do that, we can get some materials together to do some experiments. While Quill gets the book ready, let's gather some materials that we can use to do some experiments with light. You'll probably want a flashlight or some other light that you can turn on and off really easily. Another thing you might want is a mirror. You can use a small hand mirror like this or a bigger one in a bathroom or a bedroom. If you're using a big mirror, don't worry about moving it. And if you're using a small handheld one like this, make sure that you're extra careful not to break it. You'll also probably want to find a space where you can turn out all the lights and be in complete darkness, or as close to complete darkness as you can. That spot's probably a closet or a room with all the lights turned off and the windows closed. If you're doing these experiments during the day, it might be hard to keep the light of the sun out of your space, and that's okay. If you don't have access to a lamp or a flashlight that you can use, remember we can do a lot of these experiments using the light of the sun. Remember, there is light all around us, even coming out of your screen right now. So if you don't have some of these items, remember you can always come back to it later, try a different approach, or ask a grown-up for help. All right, Quill should be ready by now. So while he reads the book, I'll pop in here and there to provide some examples and experiments we can do to see how light behaves all around us. You ready, Quill?
All ready, Miss Kyla. All right, everyone. Our book is called Light, Shadows, Mirrors, and Rainbows by Natalie M. Rosinski. Miss Kyla will pop in here and there to show us how some of the principles of light in the book actually work in real life. You can follow along with her or try the experiments yourself once the video is over. So let's get started with light, shadows, mirrors, and rainbows. Delightful light. Shadows play on a sunny day. Water glints and gleams. At a storm's end, a rainbow bends. Wherever you look, light dazzles and dances. It makes wonderful shapes and colors. Light is what lets you see things. Fun fact, light comes from the sun. Other natural light is made by lightning, fireflies, and the northern lights that shine in the Arctic.
That's true. Natural light is light that occurs around us but isn't made by humans. The sun is probably the best example of natural light. Since the beginning of time, we've seen it rising and setting, and we can see the difference between night and day. But unlike a light bulb, the sun doesn't turn off when it becomes night. Rather, the Earth is turning all the time, making it look like the sun is rising and setting. Other natural lights can be found in fireflies, and even in some fish that live in the darkest parts of the ocean. The lights these creatures make with their bodies help them find food or other creatures like them. If you go to the Arctic, you might be lucky enough to see the northern lights, or the aurora borealis. These amazing lights in the sky are caused by light particles from the sun colliding with gases in Earth's atmosphere.
Light comes from light bulbs of all shapes, colors, and sizes. Fun fact, even when a room is dark, you can still see shapes and shadows. That means there must be a bit of light sneaking in. Light streams out in rays. See the rays of light that stream from a movie projector in a dark theater. See the beam that travels from a flashlight.
In a dark room, we can turn on the light from a flashlight or a light bulb. With a flashlight, you might be able to see the beam of the light coming out of the light bulb, and that's because all of the light is coming in the same direction. That's also why when I shine a flashlight at the wall in the dark, we see a bright spot of light. Whereas when I turn on a light bulb like this, the light goes in all different directions, lighting up the entire room. You can see though that depending on how close or far away we are to the source of the light, things might be dimmer or brighter.
What makes shadows? When light rays are blocked, there are spots of darkness. The sun shines on you, but it can't shine through you. Your body blocks the sunlight's path and makes a shadow that follows you wherever you go. Sometimes your shadow is in front of you. Sometimes it's behind you. Can you guess why? Even indoors, shadows jump across walls and the floor. Shine a flashlight at the wall, then wiggle your fingers for some fun. Make shadow creatures that joke and jabber. Inch your hand closer and closer to the flashlight. Your shadow creature gets bigger and bigger. What happens as you move your hand farther away from the flashlight?
Let's give that a try. Shine your flashlight at the wall and put your hand in front of it. See what creatures or shapes you can make. You might need to rest your flashlight on something so you can use both hands. You can move your hands closer to your light and further away. Can you see what happens to my shadow as I move? Then you can try having a friend move the light while still shining it on your hand. What happens to your shadow when the light source moves around?
How do mirrors work? When light hits something smooth and shiny, almost all of the light rays bounce or reflect off it. When you see yourself in a mirror, light rays are bouncing from you to the mirror and back again. Your image is a reflection. All around your house, reflections stare back at you. Look at your face in a silver toaster or a shiny spoon. These reflections look different from the one in the mirror.
A reflection is what happens when light bounces between an object and a shiny reflective surface, like a mirror. The mirror isn't really reflecting your image. It's reflecting whatever light comes in contact with its surface. So a mirror in a completely dark room wouldn't reflect anything. You can test the way light rays bounce off of reflective surfaces by shining a flashlight at your mirror and seeing where the ray bounces. I can bounce this light behind me by shining it at my mirror. And there it is. On a flat, regular mirror like this one, light rays bounce off pretty much at the angle they're sent in. But what about a differently shaped reflective surface? You can try bouncing light off of reflective surfaces around your house and see what happens to the light that's being bounced around. Then you can see how the light being bounced off of you is reflected differently in those objects. How does your reflection look different in a spoon versus the side of a toaster or the oven door? If you look around, I bet you'll find a lot of reflective surfaces you hadn't quite noticed before. We can also see how light passes through some objects, but not others. Sunlight comes right through a window pane without being stopped at all. That's because the window pane is transparent, which means light passes right through it. Some materials like thin fabric or paper are translucent, meaning light can sort of pass through them. Objects seen through a translucent screen will usually look like blurry shapes without a lot of detail, but they can still sort of be seen. Most objects, though, that light comes into contact with are opaque, which means no light passes through them at all. Your body, the roof of your house, a piece of cardboard, those are all examples of opaque items.
The moon has no light of its own. Moonlight is really sunlight reflecting off the moon. At night, this reflection lights your path and paints the trees silver. Fun fact, not everything makes a shadow or a reflection. Light can go right through objects that are clear. Moonlight can stream through a window, making a bright spot on the floor.
That's right. Strange as it might seem, the moon doesn't actually create its own light. When the sun hits the moon at a different angle, we see a different part of it and it appears a different shape to us on Earth. If you watch the moon for a whole month every night, you would see it appear as a tiny crescent and slowly grow to its full size. Then you'd see it shrink again. This is how we get the phases of the moon.
What makes a rainbow? A ray of sunlight is like a rope that's made of many strands. Each strand has its own color: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, or violet, which you might also just call purple. After a storm, the air is often filled with water droplets. When rays of sunlight shine through the droplets, the rays fray like a rope. All the colors in the rays separate and bend in slightly different directions. Fun fact: on a sunny day, you might see a rainbow in the spray of a garden hose. You can see rainbow colors in a diamond sparkle or on a delicate soap bubble.
Rainbows are one of the most amazing things about how light works for us. When light comes from the sun, it usually looks almost white. But that white light actually contains all of the colors combined. When that light shines from the sun through something like a water droplet in the air, we see all of those colors separated as a rainbow. Rainbows always have the colors red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet. We can remember these colors by thinking of our friend Roy G. Biv.
A rainbow arches across the sky. Look up and see the parade of colors that are wrapped inside every single ray of sunlight. You can't see all the colors that are in a rainbow. The colors of light at the far ends of a rainbow are invisible to people. These colors are infrared light and ultraviolet light. Not so fun fact, ultraviolet light from the sun can burn your skin.
The colors that we can see are called visible light. Humans can only see this spectrum of visible light, and we can only discern a certain number of colors within it. But some other animals can detect more or fewer colors, making the world look very different to them. Dogs only have 2 kinds of cones, so while we can see this spectrum of color, they can only see this much. But birds have 4 types of cones, which means they can see some colors that we can't even think of because we can't see them. So while a certain kind of bird might look like this to us, to other birds it might look something like this. Then there's animals like the king mantis shrimp, which has 12 different types of cones. Other animals like the rattlesnake can sense infrared light through their skin, and bumblebees can sense UV light. But we're not exactly sure how those kinds of light appear to those animals. So if our eyes were a little different, the world might be even more colorful than it already is. Visible light is just the beginning, but it is a very good place to start.
All around, light is sparkling, swirling, blinking, bending, and bouncing. Watch, wonder, investigate. Our world is shining with colorful new things to explore.
That's right. We can see the ways light works all around us all the time. How it changes when it comes into contact with a shiny reflective surface or a substance like water, or even how it changes when it hits you on a sunny day. Now we have a much better understanding of how light basically works. So how do lighting designers and other artists use light in their work? Lighting designers usually think of light in terms of 3 qualities: angle, intensity, and color. The angle of the light is the direction the light's coming from when it hits your subject. We can play with the angle of light by sitting in a dark room and shining a flashlight at ourselves. Different angles of light on your face are going to make your face look different. You've probably seen someone hold a flashlight under their chin to tell a spooky story. And that's because the angle of light makes their face look more intense and scary. But what happens when you shine a light from one side or the other, or from straight above? How do you see your face changing with the different angles? You can also try this with a partner or a toy to see how they change as you move your light. The next quality we can talk about is intensity. Intensity means how strong a light is coming from the light bulb or whatever the source might be. As a light gets brighter, the intensity is increasing. You might notice that at a low intensity, it's hard to see what we're looking at because the light is too dim. At a much higher intensity, you might notice that the subject starts to look flat and washed out. Lighting designers have to find that happy middle ground where a subject is visible and well lit. You can make light less intense by moving back away from it or by putting a translucent fabric in front of it. Remember, translucent means sort of see-through. Play around with the lights you have and some different materials to see if you can make them more or less intense in the space you're in. The last quality lighting designers like to play with is color. This one might be a little tricky to play with at home because professional lighting designers use gels, which are thin sheets of colored plastic. They put these in front of their lights to make the light a different color. Designers use color to help illustrate their world in a couple of different ways. Maybe the play you're doing takes place under the sea, so the lighting designer might use lots of blues and greens and purples to make it look underwater. Or maybe you're doing a spooky Halloween show, so the designer wants to use lots of reds and orange to make it feel scary. Wow, we've learned a lot about light, from what it is to how it works to how designers and artists use them in their work. Now you can try using some of the natural and artificial lights available to you and some of the techniques we learned this week to make your own show. Maybe it's an action film starring your favorite action figures, or a shadow puppet show performed with someone in your house. You can even use some of the crafts we've created together in previous videos. The possibilities are endless, so use what you know, stay curious, get creative, and I'll see you next time. Bye!